You are now listening to the Grio's Black Podcast Network, Black Culture Amplified.
Has your country's Supreme Court suddenly put your reproductive rights in the hands of white legislatures? Have you seen the people who are charged with protecting your life and serving your community shoot people who look like you in the face? Are you concerned about the fact that it's harder to vote than to get an assault weapon? Has a mob of angry white people tried to overturn an election and overthrow your nation? If you've answered yes to any of these questions, then you're not alone. For years, political scientists, historians, and a well-regarded organization called Every Black Person Who Ever Existed have diagnosed America with a neurological condition colloquially known as being fucked up. If you or someone you know watched the last president and now suffer from the condition experts have termed what happened to the illusion of truth, equality, national exceptionalism, and superiority syndrome, have no fear. Your friendly neighborhood Negroes are here. It's White People Wednesday. I'm Michael Harriott, and this is the Griot Daily, the only podcast that can tell you what to do when your country turns into a dumpster fire. Every Wednesday, the Griot likes to focus on our white audience members, right? We like to talk about their concerns. And recently, our Caucasian consumers have started to realize that the land of the free and the home of the brave is not so free or brave. Luckily for you, not for us, because this shit kind of hurts, Black people have acquired a few useful survival skills born from 400 years of navigating chaos and disorder in a country that ignores our concerns, tramples on our rights, and historically called for white supremacists to stand up and stand by whenever we ask this nation to stop being so damn racist. So, to address the concerns of those who are beginning to suspect that their country might be trash, the Griot has created this handy-dandy little pick-me-up to help our unmelanated countrymen survive and, dare I say, thrive under these adverse conditions. This is what to do when your country turns into a dumpster fire. Step 1. Accept that your country may be trash. Like I was Colin Kaepernick protest years old when I realized that some people actually believe in that stuff in the national anthem. For real, look, I imagine that it feels good to romanticize the past, but if you squint really hard at any history books during the twilight's last gleaming, you might discover that Francis Scott Key wrote the Star-Spangled Banner in 1814 when America still allowed the state-sanctioned practice of enslaving Black people. And the U.S. would continue to permit its citizens to purchase human beings for another half century, long after Britain, France, Denmark, Sweden, Spain, Portugal, and the Netherlands stopped that slavery BS. While racism exists in varying forms everywhere, those countries didn't replicate the uniquely American versions of Jim Crow. They didn't create color-based disenfranchisement, and they didn't instill legalized second-class citizenship that still exists in the land of the free and the home of the brave. No, America is a dumpster fire. It's trash. And sometimes, trash catches on fire. To be fair, I was disappointed when I learned that Minnesota didn't have berets made out of raspberries, crying doves, or a single inch of purple precipitation. Step 2, realize that you're part of the problem. Are you outraged that a so-called democracy would overturn the right to abortion? Were you frazzled by a clarion call to MAGA muffin poll watchers? Well, you should have probably said something when Donald Trump promised that he'd overturn Roe versus Wade. Or perhaps you should have stood up after he did it and the majority of white women voted for anti-choice candidates in the next 2 elections. Or maybe when he installed 2 Supreme Court justices who he said was going to overturn Roe versus Wade. Maybe you should have joined the thousands of Black-led organizations that was doing something about it. And I know you didn't think that it was going to personally affect you, which is actually a good point. See, if you silently watch someone planning a robbery, you can't cry when they take your shit. There will always be corrupt, racist liars who try to destroy America. But this country won't be destroyed by corruption, racism, or lies. It will be because someone recognized the corruption, racism, and lies and did nothing. So congratulations, you helped light this dumpster fire. Step 3, stop loving America so damn much. I mean, everybody was rightfully appalled when the January 6th Congressional Committee reported that Republicans had joined the efforts of Proud Boys and white supremacist groups to overthrow the country. Aside from the fact that black reporters like myself have been reporting on the Proud Boys, the Three Percenters, the Oath Keepers for nearly a decade and saying, hey, you know they're going to try to overthrow the country, right? Like they're going to try to toss out our votes, and it's going to be a little bit of voter suppression and some violence. We've been saying that for years. But white people are like, how did this happen? Who knew this was going to happen? We did. We tried to tell y'all. Of course, those violent right-wing extremists didn't spontaneously manifest themselves into existence. They probably came from the right-wing militias who claim to want to protect the Constitution. Or maybe they came from the innocuous far-right groups who the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security have been warning us about in written memos for years. The nativist movement of the 1920s and the 1830s, the Ku Klux Klan, the nativist movement of the 1940s, the Nazi movement, the segregation movement, and the alt-right movement all evolved from supposedly patriotic groups who were intent on protecting American values and keeping America first. See, America ain't lines on a map. America ain't shit but people. Whenever someone cloaks themselves in the false flag of love for country or refers to themselves as a patriot, you should be scared. Because see, they are actually preparing to grab their tiki torches and long goods so they can ignite a dumpster fire and start killing people who don't look like them. It happens every time. Step 4, don't fan the flames. Even if you don't agree that Black Lives Matter, even if you don't like seasoning, even if you refuse to accept the infinite amount of studies proving systemic racism exists in voting, policing, criminal justice, education, and healthcare, I don't understand why you would fight against addressing those problems. Like, if it don't exist, then let them people waste their time trying to fight it, right? Like, don't try to stop progress. Can we agree that police kill too many human beings? Why not just try to improve all schools? Shouldn't we try to keep guns out of the hands of people who have proven to be unstable and dangerous? Why would anyone want more people in jail or more people dying because they can't afford health care? Yet in America, we fight all of this, and I can't understand why. Why do you fight the good things? And that's not a rhetorical question. I really want to know why anyone would oppose universal background checks or an increase of the minimum wage or incarcerating police who kill unarmed people. White children go to school. There are more poor and unemployed white people than there are black people. You know cops shoot white people too, right? Y'all know that, right? As the white apocalypse devours your beloved country, you gotta remember that we gonna remember how you gathered around the fire and watched us burn. And when we begged you to help us extinguish the flames, you said, nah, I gotta roast these marshmallows. Step 5, choose a side. Perhaps this dumpster fire was ignited by people who only consider their needs instead of thinking about the greater good. Whether it's a global pandemic, economic anxiety, or the prospect of a post-election free-for-all, you're going to have to pick a team to represent you in the great American shit show. The choice isn't between Democrat or Republican, liberal or conservative, or even white people versus black, indigenous people of color who use the correct bathroom and have missionary sex with Jesus. You have to make a choice between good and evil, right and wrong. And here are your choices. People who believe Black Lives Matter, or people who aren't bothered by videos of black people getting shot in the face, lower taxes, or poor people having access to well-funded schools, community resources, living wages, higher education, and affordable health care. A global pandemic that disproportionately kills poor people, or wearing a mask to Walmart. Guns, versus guns, but with some common sense rules. The right to vote, or the right to vote if you have an ID, have never committed a crime, or employed by a company that will let you off work, live in a white neighborhood, and don't mind waiting in line. Lorries versus a dash of seasoned salt. Step 6, do what Black people do. Now that your country is in flames, you're going to need someone to show you how to survive the fire. Although there are many people who have endured hardship and suffering, there is only one group of people whose record proves that they are worthy of your allegiance. Team Black people. This ain't to say that white people aren't survivors. They survived the bloodiest conflict in American history, but they were fighting white people. They survived the Great Depression because the New Deal simply took the tax dollars paid by Black people and built the white middle class. They barely made it through horrific tan suits, terrorist fist bumps, and hidden birth certificates during the Obama presidency. And all they got to show for it was free health care, a healthy economy, an international climate change agreement, a nuclear-free Iran, and 5 Rihanna albums. Black people, on the other hand, survived slavery, the Civil War, Reconstruction, separate but equal, Red Summer, redlining, the Civil Rights Movement, Nixon, the war on drugs, Ronald Reagan, 2 Bushes, and a Donald Trump. And we did it with twice the unemployment, unequal schools, lower pay, housing inequality, financial discrimination, racial terrorism, and no health care. And just as she did during Donald Trump's reign of terror, Rihanna released very little music during Reconstruction. See, we've been doing this stuff. Step 7, don't just stand there, do something. We know you're not an experienced firefighter, but you can lend a hand by voting for a party who isn't supporting white nationalism, or you can just say something every time you spot a microscopic bit of injustice or inequality, or just don't call the police every time you feel uncomfortable or upset. Fighting for what's equality, even if it costs you some privilege, is the right thing to do. Or you could just not reflexively choose to protect whiteness over righteousness. At least you can just stop buying Katy Perry albums. Or you can listen to Black women. Seriously, stop calling the police all the goddamn time. Or you could use more seasoning. Or you could pay Black people the same thing you pay white people. Or you could support diversity and inclusion by raising your hand and asking, why there are no Black people in the room? Or remember that thing I said about not calling the cops? Hey, why don't you try that? Okay, I was just checking. And number 8, this is the final one, let it burn. I know how it feels terrible to watch something you love be destroyed by racism, apathy, hate, and incompetence, but you have to look at the bright side. You're gonna get a brand new country. See, sometimes you can change the system by enacting fairer rules and injecting equity into the equation, but sometimes you just gotta raise everything to the ground and start all over. You can't fix anything without dismantling the parts that are already broken, and this is just the breaking part. The founding fathers were essentially like wig-wearing members of Antifa. The federal government put down a white supremacist rebellion, and we called it a civil war. Examples of previous dumpster fires include like the American Revolution, the Boston Tea Party, the war between the states and the white supremacists, the segregation movement, Making America Great Again, stopping the steal, and every attempt at a reboot of the Fantastic Four. Will y'all please stop doing that? Like, we don't need no more Fantastic Four movies, for real, y'all. And if any part of this podcast makes you feel uncomfortable, there's also an online version of this podcast that isn't filled with as much sarcasm, profanity, and race-basing. It just basically says this: in every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be a ruler of free people. See, America has always been trash. And sometimes the things that should have been discarded are politely hauled away by people who we have charged with that task. But there are times when those people don't do their jobs, and the racist, incompetent, corrupt debris starts to stink so bad that some of us can't take it anymore. And now, you are some of us. Don't forget to download the Griot app, subscribe, and tell one friend about the Griot Daily. And as usual, we're gonna leave you with a quote from Black America for all of our white friends who just realized that they are in a dumpster fire. You know, Black folks draw heat. Thank you for listening to the Griot Daily. If you like what you heard, please give us a 5-star review, download the Griot app, subscribe to the show, and share it with everyone you know. Please email all questions, suggestions, and compliments to podcasts@thegrio.com.
You are now listening to the Griot's Black Podcast Network, Black Culture Amplified.